In September 2019, what was described as the biggest ever environmental protest the UK had seen was held in various locations across the country, including Edinburgh. It seemed to be all anyone could talk about. Thousands of students went to the streets, skipping school for the day because they felt that while conversations about climate change were beginning to be heard, there had still not been any meaningful action taken, remaining just a conversation. The intention of these marches was to keep showing support. This wouldn't fix everything, but would encourage those in power and every individual to start to make a change. However, looking at any article and the comments underneath that report on this, you can see this has sparked an even wider debate than perhaps previously imagined. Many people said that young people were using this cause as an excuse to miss lessons, to which they said that they didn't want to miss school, but felt that it sent an important message that they believed would help their futures far more than any lesson could. This resulted in a supposed opposition created between school and making a difference, with teenagers feeling unprepared and unheard in our education system, yet painfully aware of the injustices in the world created by forces out of our control. Since then, what has happened? Has any lasting impact been created through these protests, or were the critics right? In my school, we have been taking action on climate change through the Eco Committee, but how is it that we can go from thousands of pupils marching in the streets to a classroom of just 25? Both are important, but was it true that most of these activists were just in it for a day off? I believe the answer is far more complex than any polarized argument could provide. I believe it all comes down to the perceived lack of power of the individual. We've all gone through the pandemic, which only emphasized through its lockdowns the powerlessness of the individual on a worldwide scale. Fast forward to the present day, and the threat of climate change is still hanging over us, with young people feeling that this problem and many others are out of our control. Young people are often described as the voices of the future, but our hands are tied. It makes sense, though, that we have this ability to view things with such a long-term perspective, as for so many of us, our lives consist of incessant thoughts of needing to learn what you need at school for the exams at the end of the year so that you can get the necessary qualifications to get into a good university, to get a degree, to get a job, to earn money, to have a nice life. And yet, how young are we? And we need to think this far ahead. It's important to recognize that our lives are happening now too. In fact, these years are often described as the best years of your life, an unsettling thought to hear when you're having a less than perfect day at school, focused on the future. When young people are portrayed as the generation who will bring about the much needed change in this world, this change is hard to define. And yet, so many young people already feel this pressure to make it happen without a clear outlet to do so. This results in the period of adolescence being viewed as a passive time, where studying is simply a means to an end, and no significant change can be made while within the boundaries of school, leaving us until someday in the future, when we know it'll be too late by then, and that no change can be made unless we do something about it in the present moment for the future. This is why we see such a surge of action in the protests when a global movement is already underway, and yet a significant silence when we return to our everyday lives, and the limiting belief of how could I ever make a difference in turn limits what is possible. Worse still, this negative perspective can become so unbearable that, in not wanting to believe it's true, young people are becoming more and more susceptible to disinformation online, the attributed cause of a concerning recent survey that revealed around a third of teenagers believe that climate change is exaggerated. When this is such an overwhelming issue, a small dose of stoicism might be helpful, not resigning ourselves to our fate, but instead looking at our own lives and the ways we can control or influence things in some way. I'd like to share some of my own experiences that hopefully show that the influence we have is far greater than we might imagine it to be, even when you're still in high school, and shows that this is a far more productive and positive way to look at life. When I started high school, it felt immensely vast, with a population of 1,500 pupils. Making my own unique contribution to the school had never even crossed my mind. None of the clubs really interested me, apart from the gardening club. We had a great day at a garden design competition at the Botanics. We lost, but we came home fantasizing about all these fantastical ideas of where we could get funding, writing them down on the bus. But then the pandemic happened, and the club faded away, and we would occasionally bring up our plans in conversation, but nothing would ever come of it. I didn't feel fulfilled in school, though I did enjoy it, but it was only in S4 when I was invited to the award ceremony for my work in RMPS, and saw this whole community of activities and events in the school being acknowledged through this event that I hadn't fully noticed before. That I really started to notice people around me starting to make change, even on a small scale. The president of the former People's Society, Ken Edwards, gave a speech that really resonated with me, where he encouraged pupils to truly make the most of their time at school, recounting his own experiences of high school and how that final day seemed to arrive so suddenly. There was a sense of emptiness as the bell rang for the last time, and he and his friends all went their separate ways. When I returned to school in S5, I was determined not to let any opportunities or ideas pass by, so that when it was my time to leave, I would feel I had truly made the most of my time there. Just by having this mindset, keeping the future in mind, but using this as motivation to do something in the present, I saw so many opportunities to try new things. A chance conversation in higher philosophy led to becoming a founder and editor of our Revive School newspaper, and the opportunities grew exponentially from there. I showcased our janitor Neil's fantastic nature writing. I rediscovered the school's forgotten archives, seeing firsthand the lasting impacts that people can have on a school even decades after they've left. And I even saw Ken Edwards again at the former People's Evening, where I was able to share his message to milk every moment with the rest of the school. I also met Professor Sir Jeff Palmer, who shared a series of chance encounters that happened to him while he was in the education system that allowed him to go to high school, continue education, and ultimately guided him towards becoming the first black professor in Scotland and a pioneer in equalities work. Through these inspiring interviews, I saw the positive impact that high school can have on one's entire life, and it reaffirmed my sense of gratitude for having such opportunities. As people and staff contributions to the paper increased, I realized I was having a real impact on the sense of community in the school. Particular highlights of S5 included winning the YPEF forestry competition with two of my friends, and the newspaper winning the title of Secondary School Newspaper of the Year. These were incredible experiences that made me realize that what you do in high school creates lasting memories, and these things can make a difference on a large scale. So much of our time is spent learning for the future. But the things we do in school can be achievements to be proud of in and of themselves, giving you confidence to keep moving forward. And even after I'd left the paper at the start of S6, I wanted to continue making a difference with the free time I now had, inspired by the forestry competition, to join the Eco Committee. Within a matter of months, I had co-led a COP28 simulation with Edinburgh schools, which led us to be invited back to speak at the Learning for Sustainability AGM, where we were able to share our vision for the future, and I was communicating my ideas for a dedicated subject for sustainability and the climate crisis to those who were actually capable of helping to make it a reality. This was a real-world result created through our actions, something I'd thought about for many years but didn't see any way that I could make it happen. As my work on the People Council extended into the Community Council, I realized that all of my activities showed that my circle of influence extended far beyond anything that I'd previously thought it to be, even beyond the school building, and that you never know where an opportunity might lead you. What I'd encourage you to take away from this, what I wish I'd known when I started high school, are these 5-ish things. Firstly, that high school is a time of pure possibility, and though you might feel that any actions you take are a mere drop in the ocean, as cheesy as the metaphor may sound, it actually does create ripples and adds up to make a massive difference. If there isn't a club that interests you, make one. There's no harm in asking. The worst anyone can say to you is no, so it's worth a try. I know this for a fact. My teachers have been really supportive with any ideas I've had and have also come to me with opportunities as well. The same thing applies if you know of a cause that people aren't aware of or have an idea that you want to make a reality. Sometimes you have to actively seek these things out rather than waiting for an opportunity to arise. For example, I'd always missed the primary school fairs that happened every year, and so by looking into it this year, I'm helping to organize our school's first ever summer fair. we're all prone to complaining about the environment we're in now and again, especially a group of high school students. You've all got something, I'm sure, that you've thought would be so much better if, or why hasn't anyone thought of doing this? And also, don't worry about the community involvement you partake in having any impact on your social life. Before I'd gone to any clubs, honestly, my friends and I would run out of things to talk about over lunchtime. We wouldn't even want to meet up over the weekend because we'd seen so much of each other. Now we've got things to share when we do see each other at breaks and lunches, and the time we have is shorter, but it's more meaningful. And if we don't get a chance to see each other during the weekdays, we're more interested in catching up outside of school. Don't be afraid to go to things on your own, for you might meet like-minded people when you align your behaviors with your passions. I've met many other people from other year groups as well that have inspired me with the changes they're making. I'm certainly not alone in what I'm doing. And even if you don't meet anyone who's like-minded, you will have a newfound sense of confidence and independence. If you're not sure you'll like something, just give it a try at least once, because then you don't have to go back, but at least you'll have tried something new. That feeling of going into a room on your own doesn't ever fully go away, but the more you do it, the more you'll see it was worthwhile. I certainly found this even after I had left the paper. I was going to leave the Kiva Microloans group after the first session. Everyone was in the year below me, yet when voting on who to give the charitable loans to, it was won by a majority of 1. If I hadn't gone that day, it would have likely had a different outcome. Just seeing that difference that could be made by showing up kept me coming back. Don't take on more than you can manage, finally, for you are at school for the lessons first and foremost. If you're neglecting work because you've got too many extracurricular things to do, make sure your priorities are in order and see if there's anything you can cut down on. Also, don't just do things for the sake of it with the intention of putting it on your CV, as your time could be much better spent doing something that makes you happy, and that could lead to an achievement that you could talk about on a personal statement. If something you've joined stops being fun, remember why you joined and decide to do what's right for you. And if that means leaving, remember that opportunities will arise because you're walking away, and that creates space for something new to make your time more enjoyable. Ultimately, this talk and even marches in the street won't make any difference. It's whatever we as individuals take from these experiences and what we do with that knowledge and awareness that will really make the change we seek happen. Hopefully, I've given you something to think about today that will have a lasting positive impact on your perspective of life, of high school, and of the opportunities they hold. I will reiterate what Ken Edwards said to us at that award ceremony, that it's important to make the most of your high school experience and milk every moment. Regardless of what you're passionate about, explore it and see how society, its institutions, and their systems can change even on a small scale, which can lead to an impact on a group, on a school, on a community, and beyond. Thank you.